My
This
screen is
conference
live.
will now be recorded.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another installment of our Ask the Hollywood Expert series by SMPTE Hollywood. My name is Kylie, and I'm a section manager for Hollywood section. If you're still in school, just graduated, early career, there are a lot of jobs you probably have never heard of. And today is another one of those. Just some quick housekeeping before we begin. Please keep your webcams off, keep muted. If you have questions for RaGene, put them in the chat. And if you just click on the speech bubble and type it in, hit send to everyone or send to organizers, it'll work out for you. So let's get started with RaGene Nomolos-Dixon. He is my colleague at Netflix, a cloud engineer with the creative systems team. So he's shared his screen and he's going to tell us a little about his backstory, and then we'll get into the questions from y'all. So take it away, Nomo. And you are muted, if you didn't know. Nomo, come back.
Perfect. Okay, you guys can hear me.
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you now. I thought you left me.
Yeah, it seems to be loading this go-to meeting. Can you allow me to share my camera and screen again? I'm back in the default settings.
You're still an organizer, so you should be good to go.
Okay.
I can see your screen.
Okay, perfect. So,
Yep.
good afternoon, everyone. This is SMPTE Q&A with me. I'm kind of honored to be here and introduce myself and my path. So I guess we can get started with a bit of my background. As Kylie has said, she's a colleague of mine at Netflix. I'm a media and entertainment cloud solutions engineer, where pretty much I try to deliver, or not try, but pretty much deliver cloud solutions for media and entertainment workflows. So production or post-production workflows, we pretty much try to now migrate those into the cloud. My background is pretty much tech. I've kind of initially been in tech my entire life. We can kind of start at my origin. I'm a SoCal native. Uh, I'm pretty much been born and raised here in the Los Angeles area, so Hollywood has kind of been always around. But it's been pretty fun of a ride since I've been here. So as I said, I'm a huge X-Men fan. As you can see, X-Men Origins wanted to be Wolverine. Yeah.
Can you
guys hear me?
I'm not seeing your screen advance.
Is it stuck in the actual?
It's on the title slide.
Okay. So, one sec. So this go-to meeting is a bit weird. Sorry, everyone. Are you guys able to see Origin and me? As I said, this it says this meeting does not include camera sharing as well as presenter to start sharing your screen. I have to become a presenter.
Yeah, you're a presenter. Let me do it again.
So there's the
I swear,
camera.
y'all, we do a tech check every time, and it's always fun.
So camera's coming on, and screen share, it also says become the presenter to share screen.
All right, there you go.
Perfect, thank you. Now you guys, sorry for this rough start. It's technology, right? I'm a cloud solutions engineer, but sorry about that. So as you guys hopefully can see, Origin and me, once upon a time, as I said, I'm a SoCal native, raised here, did a lot of traveling after my high school years, but for the most part, began my journey here in Southern California. My mom worked at Disney. That was kind of an early exposure into the entertainment industry. I was able to kind of take studio walks and enjoy all the Disney events from the 90s. once I kind of went to Fox, I asked about those, and they said, yeah, those are gone. So I was happy to kind of be exposed to the greater Disney world during the 90s with all of the theme parks and visits and studio visits and all of that. So that really kind of sparked an interest for me in the entertainment industry. Of course, being from LA, Hollywood's being right around the corner. It's kind of a match made in heaven, so to say. So I could kind of didn't take a route. We tried to get into, you know, extra roles, but that really didn't pan out. I just kind of luckily didn't get exposed to that part of the industry. So I continued my journey where I went into the military post high school. I decided I wanted to travel the world. And as you can see, I was able to travel the world. I was actually a tank mechanic, but being deployed, it's all hands on deck. So it's pretty much you're working on whatever they need you to. I was kind of exposed to a lot of technical acumen during this time, from different computer systems on the actual tanks to actual mechanical systems, as you can see on the actual Humvees. So this also kept my interest in the technological field, or the technical field, I should say, with a cross reference into technology and how the various systems and components interact with each other to operate a tank and function a tank. So as you can see, I was deployed. This is to Tikrit, Iraq, me and my battalion. This down here is me and my crew, our shop crew. So this was fun times, as you can see or imagine. So as we go on, I finally got out the military, decided to actually take on the role of network technician. I got exposure through Cisco. So Cisco networking systems, went through the whole CCNA program where I gained exposure to what we consider the OSI model. Um, this is very crucial to any technologist. You want to have a sound understanding of which particular layer you may be working at within the technological stack or the technology stack. Uh, I said to myself, hey, this is very cool from a network technician perspective, but we were kind of stuck at the lower layers, as you can see, network, data link, physical, and transport. I decided code is cool, so let's figure out how to kind of build this and integrate the entire stack. So I wanted to basically take that and programmatically place it into the cloud. So we take this old Commodore 64, and its functionality, of course, is beyond what we can imagine nowadays. This was pretty much old, but now we want to move these functionalities into the cloud. So I was exposed to that going forward when I was introduced to the entertainment industry through employment. Uh, I was first employed through Activision Blizzard once I finished my time in the telecommunications industry and gained enough experience and knowledge to navigate the stack, so to say, where I worked to support the Call of Duty Elite mobile app. It was a companion app where users would basically be able to map all of their in-game stats to their mobile device, and whatever they would want to view and show off, I guess they would do that. As we can see, uh, the actual increase in esports and the audience that it's actually captured. This was early in 2012 when it was kind of in its infancy, and we've kind of now seen it grow into a global, you know, thing. So it's kind of great to have been a part of that, but that actually introduced me to various production workflows, working with producers, working with actual assets within the actual pipelines that were delivering these games, and assets or the actual development of the games and the actual directors on these actual games. So I was actually able to take that and kind of use that as a jumping point to the industry and understand the lingo and understand how assets are transferred and the importance of assets. So once I kind of finished my tenure there, I moved on to Germany, where that's not really here, but I spent about 5 years in Germany, where I worked for another telecommunications industry where we supported AWS network links. So that exposed me to the actual networking of AWS and how the physical transports of all of that internet connections transfer verse the world or traverse the world. I mean, so that was a great exposure. Upon coming back from Germany, I joined 21st Century Fox, which basically gave me that broadcast and live television exposure. We basically supported all of the Sunday NFL ticket games, all of the Fox NFL games, all of the entire 2018 FIFA World Cup, as you can see. That was presented by Fox. That was a huge deal for us and our team, as we were pretty much responsible for supporting the entire asset flow of all of the clips, all of the actual game footage from Russia back to our data center in Los Angeles. So that was a great opportunity to gain true exposure to media workflows. So from the time that the asset is captured to the time that it's actually stored, and what actual connectivity mediums are used. So, for example, Aspera, Signiant transfer agents. These are actual just file transfer agents that are huge within the media and entertainment industry. They're applications that basically transfer these huge video assets. So we capture the content. It's then sent off to a particular endpoint, as they would call it, or node within Aspera. And from Aspera, it will then high speed transfer that to whichever other node. So we were responsible for supporting that entire infrastructure and pretty much automating that process of spinning up that infrastructure within whichever region. So these were physical nodes. So that means we would actually have these spun up automatically and then shipped to the actual location within Russia for transferring of all of the various World Cup assets or clips and video footage that everyone would see. Of course, we then had the live feeds for going through our satellite links and broadcast networks that would then send the live data to, say, your home network or your home screen, your television. So we were primarily supporting the Visa halftime shows, so things of that nature, commercial clips, edits, making sure the actual melts, as they would call them in the broadcast world, were actually being sent. So a actual melt can be considered a bulk load of assets or clips that have been captured on screen or within the live game and then sent back for editing and capturing and clipping and cuts and all of that. So we were pretty much responsible for the bulk transfer of all of those assets. That brought me onto Netflix. I was kind of noticed in my work at Fox, so I was able to join Netflix, and where I'm now working into the production world rather than broadcast and live TV. It's feature film production, animation productions. We're supporting those workflows now. Of course, you still have those asset transfer mediums such as Asperas and transfer agents and that nature, but we're now at the point where we're capturing the actual live or the footage on the camera or the actual live talk excuse me, or the actual live filming of the action, whatever may the film be, or the storyboard of an animation, so to say. We're now at the point where we're wanting to move that into the cloud, so to say. So studio in the cloud workflows is kind of a niche saying at the moment, but we're kind of trying to bring it to the forefront of the industry as it's particularly viable from a cost perspective and just from an innovation perspective and the ability to actually deploy these actual systems in a manner that is fast, reliable, and scalable and offers the artist joy. Uh, that's the main thing we're kind of responsible for in our department within Netflix and creative tech is to bring artists joy. Uh, when an artist is happy, they will bring you the best content. And as you know, the broader audience, we want the best content to entertain us. So this is pretty much where I come into play. I deliver these solutions. Storyboard in the cloud, for instance, an application called Flix. It's brought by, well, it's a Foundry Tech company. They basically brought this storyboard animation application, which allows artists to basically cover various clips within the storyboarding animation process. So we would have various scenes or clips of artists who have made SketchUps and markups of what the animation will look like, well, at its infancy. And from there, they can then iterate over those SketchUps through the actual program and download those into, say, a Premiere and continue to work on those markups and SketchUps. So these are now cloudified, so to say. Before they would run in a data center, you would have to worry about, say, the maintenance of all of that. We've put that into the cloud where it's very reliable, it's very scalable, and it's automated. Um, so a key component of this would be automation. Um, Coding, of course, is also a key component of automation. I kind of took an unorthodox route to understanding cloud coding, but as you can see, any route can be taken. Mostly continuing education is a must in this industry, whether it's technology or media entertainment. When you combine those two, it's an ever going or education that you have to commit to because we want to continue to bring the audience the best content that we can as engineers, as people working in the motion and film industry. We want to bring joy to the greater audience. So being able to do that in my position and to have been able to have done that has been just a great honor for me.
Awesome. Thank you for that rundown. That was
No
excellent.
problem. No problem.
Such a diverse path that you've had.
Yeah,
Do
exactly.
you want to go ahead and quit sharing your screen and we'll get to the Q&A?
Sure.
Cool. Great. Well, let's go back to the beginning a little bit. When you were trying to figure out what to do with your life, like you were coming out of high school and figuring out, did you have any particular interests that would have led you down this path? Or when you went into the military, were you just trying to figure it out?
I would say I was trying to figure it out. I knew I was always kind of technically inclined. I did well on the military test on the technical portion, which placed me as a tank mechanic. So that it was kind of always in me. I just never knew where to kind of steer it, especially being young.
Mhm.
I 17, fresh out of high school. It was like I want to go see the world. So I decided the military was the best option to go kind of see the world. And luckily, I was able to do that.
And when you went into the military and you're working on tanks and stuff, did you choose that or were you kind of assigned to that?
Exactly. You're assigned based on your score on the ASVAB. So there's a military exam called the ASVAB, and based on your score, they place you in a category to which jobs you'll qualify for, and I qualified for that job.
Awesome. That has to come in handy when you need to fix machinery, but I would think there's a less obvious link between fixing mechanical things and now the less tangible fixing systems where it's all on screen and you're typing things in and seeing how it works, like the iteration of troubleshooting. Is that true? Is that sort of
They
how it
actually
works? And
hold
what else did you learn from the military?
exactly. That's actually foundation in mechanical engineering or and systems engineering. Troubleshooting, you will be that's a foundation to both of those sectors. So being able to troubleshoot just came naturally through being a mechanic and applying that knowledge from understanding how diesel engines work to a system is the same. You have components. Engine is made up of components just as well as a system is made up of components. So we just kind of transpose those components from saying it's a turbo on a diesel engine to say it's an aggregator on a system. So I just was able to kind of make those parallels between the two
Mm-hmm.
industries.
Yeah, is it the same with mechanical engineering where the first thing you do is turn it off and on again?
Of course not. Of course not. Because by the time it gets to you, most likely it doesn't come on anyway. So you kind of work backwards, so to say. Um,
Hmm.
that I guess Windows is kind of put people on that path of just restart it. But yeah, luckily the cloud, yeah, restart won't pretty much kick too much in the cloud. It'll be a redeploy.
Yeah. Well, there are limits to that piece of
Exactly.
advice. So it's interesting that you found this path into Activision and Fox and Netflix working in a studio, but your starting point was very different. The last two people I talked to on this went to school because they thought they wanted to be directors. So they were very much on the creative side. And you have been more on the systems side. And I
Mhm.
think people forget that that is a critical piece of entertainment technology now
Mhm.
because, we're making ones and zeros and somebody's got
Mhm.
to make sure that they get to the end goal.
Exactly.
So how did you discover these kinds of careers? How did you discover that cloud engineer was a thing?
Exactly. So, being immersed in the lower layers of, as I said, the OSI model, that's the networking layers where you're actually working in the physical connections between computers or networking devices. I thought about it in a holistic form where a cloud is just a clustering of all of these physical components. A cloud, of course, we connect to the cloud over the internet, but an internet still needs a physical connection. So when we take that private way of thinking about networks and thinking of your private network or your WAN network, where it's just your company connected to that network, and you expose it to the greater internet through various protocols such as Border Gateway Protocol, so BGP, that's a huge internet protocol. That's the protocol that kind of runs the internet. And working within the telecommunications industry, I was able to see how these protocol pairings were configured. And as I said, being able to support the actual Amazon internet links that supported most of this web traffic in Europe was a huge advantage as well. To see that, okay, these aren't just clouds; these are actual physical fiber links, and these are actual cables. These are actual lines running along the floor of the road, under the concrete, and through sewers. These are We're getting calls where cables are cut in sewer lines, and it's like this has actual physical infrastructure still running across the world. And I was able to dissect that and then programmatically think of it in a way through code. Code brought me that exposure to understanding how APIs work, and understanding how to interact with various APIs. Amazon Web Services, for instance, is a huge API. Well, excuse me. It's a application programming interface. So when you put an application programming interface, say on the greater internet with a BGP connection where anyone can say connect to it through their internet service provider, you then give people a method of interacting with that API. So with us, we would launch, say, a Flix instance, so a storyboard instance for animators to remotely connect into that server over the internet to actually edit their storyboard material.
Awesome. Uh, Talking about APIs and all that sort of leads a little bit into this question from a viewer. Is there anything creative about your job and your experience? A lot of people think, oh, you sit in front of a computer, that's not creative at all. So what is creative about what you do?
Exactly. Creativity comes in the form of optimization. So system optimizations, we may not think of optimizing a system as creative, but there are many ways to say skin a cat, as some would think of it. And there is also the most optimized way of doing it. Being able to do things in the most optimized manner takes a level of creativity in the mind that some may not possess. Programming a system or deploying a system in a manner that is efficient and highly scalable and highly reliable for its user base is a creative act. It seems highly specialized and highly rudimentary or basic in the functions that it does, but the way you build these Legos, so to say, within your code is where the creativity comes in.
Absolutely. You've got to be able to solve all kinds of problems all the time.
Exactly.
Another viewer question. This person worked at a data center for a long time and has some recent live broadcast experience in Aspera use. And they would love to know more about how that could possibly transfer into something more like what you do now.
So, great question. Thank you for bringing Aspera up. As I said, Aspera is key to the industry, to the greater industry. So, understanding the Node API, which is a API that Aspera basically comes native with, is something that you could really use to leverage within the industry and within a position to show that you have worth, or you would be a very viable asset to the company. Aspera, as I said, it's not going anywhere. It's only becoming more in use and it's more developed. So it's definitely a good path if you're looking into understanding Aspera. But before just understanding Aspera, understand how to configure it, how to deploy it in an automated fashion, and how to basically query its API for all of that vital data.
Yeah, everyone's favorite, Aspera.
Mhm.
Building off of that, what was the learning curve like coming from something like telecom to Netflix, where you might have more creative interaction, like interaction with actual artists, maybe even face to face sometimes? And how do you learn how to deal with that new environment?
Exactly. Coming from the telco world, it's very bureaucratic, very structured. It's not too much face-to-face action. Everyone has an open door policy, but the door stays shut. So it wasn't really a huge transition for me, as I was always understanding of the industry, being raised here, seeing how my mom kind of operated within the industry, seeing her employee or her colleagues and how they went around. So I saw everyone was always kind of upbeat, kind of spunky, light, and not too serious compared to the telecommunications industry. So that was a huge relief for me. It was like, why not just kind of mold into that new culture, so to say, of being a bit more light and not so bureaucratic.
Hmm, absolutely. And building off that even further, what are you studying right now or learning now, or where do you go to keep up with all the changes in the industry, to keep on the top of your game for your job?
Exactly. So a huge resource I've used is Udemy. It's paid massively online courses. You can learn anything from filming, photography to DevOps and coding. So I use a lot of these tutorials or actual packs to keep fresh on, say, what's new in automation, what's new in code, what's the newest framework, or what's the latest in deployment processes for my industry. Of course, it's mainly self-motivated, me going out, Googling things. Of course, Stack Overflow in the tech industry is a huge asset and huge help for us all. Mainly, of course, any initiatives that, say, third parties or my colleagues come by that they may think are interesting are always a huge help, a huge source of getting new information. So it varies. It's a lot of avenues you can take. Just keep your ears open. I would say stay alert and stay open to learning new things. I mean, it's an ever evolving industry.
Yeah, I've personally found there comes a point in a lot of these jobs, especially when you're doing a lot of R&D, where you can't Google anymore. You need to rely on expertise from personal experience. How do you manage that? Do you go seek out groups of people? Do you go to meetups, SMPTE
Exactly.
like organizations?
Yeah.
Is there somewhere where you can find those experts to develop relationships with?
Yes, I'm not a part of any of those professional orgs, but I do know of them. For the most part, I like building things. So me actually putting my hands to the keyboard, so to say, and actually building a solution on my free time is what kind of keeps me fresh and keeps me aware of what's going on. The easiest way is to break something and figure out how to fix it again. And the best way to break something or the best environment to break stuff is in your own home and not on anyone else's dime, so to say. So to stay fresh, just build solutions. If you really want to be a technologist, the most straightforward way is to download a Linux pack and start figuring out the command line shell, understanding Bash, maybe figuring out a high level programming language like Python or Ruby, JavaScript, and start literally building. There's tons of documentation there for those various libraries, for those various programming languages that will definitely lead you to success and provide you with a very solid foundation for understanding how to build solutions.
Yeah, there are so many places. If you just Google learning Python, I feel like you can learn it
Hmm.
for free everywhere.
Of course, but you can
Yeah,
learn it for free, but you have to build things. It's one thing to understand how to create a Hello World app, and another to engineer an entire solution that's scalable and reliable. And that comes with understanding the various components and systems that and tools that are required to provide that functionality.
absolutely. I feel called out with my Hello World skills.
No worries.
Going into, let's talk a little bit about all the changes that have happened in the industry in the last 3 or 4 months. One of the, I know that you are working on like remote productions and stuff. One question from a viewer was, do you use HP Remote Graphics Software, RGS, for facilitating remote production? And do you have any
Yes,
thoughts on it?
exactly. Yes, we actually do use HPRGS. We're using it for our colo site. We're not actually using it in the cloud. So as far as how it was deployed, that would be another member of my team. We're using more so Teradici. If you may have heard of Teradici, that's another display protocol, IP over or PCO IP protocol that allows for remote desktop sessions. That's what we're using in the cloud. That's allowing us to enable remote desktop or remote workstations for our workforce and animators. Is mostly through Teradici.
So there might be people on this call that are less familiar with how the cloud works, don't know what a colo is. Can you very simply, very high level explain maybe the flow of data from a user to a colo?
Hmm. Of course,
That might be a
of
big
course.
question, but like try to
So
break it
no
down into
worries.
very
Yeah,
little pieces.
definitely. So yeah, if we like turn this into components, we have you, for instance, Kylie, you're there right now at your home on your laptop. It's capturing an image through your camera. So that camera is then connected to your Wi-Fi, well, your system bus on your system. So your laptop has something to send it over the internet, right? So there's an IP address. There's an address somewhere out there on the internet that this video is being pushed to, uh, similar to your home address when someone mails you something. So that's how your video footage knows to get to say, go to meet me. So for instance, at a data center, that IP address would be of, say, a switch or router within that data center, or a address within that data center location. So from your actual home system, you would have a way over your network to get to that actual data center. It will be a pretty much a fast IP address or a hard IP that rarely changes because, as we know, we don't move often. Our address doesn't move. I can find Kylie all the time at Kylie's address. So it's similar with your ISP. As long as you don't change your ISP, whether it be Spectrum, Verizon, your IP rarely changes. So as long as you keep your ISP, they'll always have a lookup of where all these other addresses are, which is, I can reference that protocol, as I said earlier, BGP. that's what disperses. That's, say, the post office. You can think of say, BGP as the actual post office and all of the mailboxes that has all of these addresses to know where each of these actual packets or packages are going. We refer to them as packets, but you can think of them as packages. And they hit an exchange, just as your mail hits a mail exchange. From there, then gets dispersed into the network and routed to various locations until it hits your endpoint, such as when mail hits your address.
Excellent. So when people are working truly remotely and their computer is a zero client or even a thin client, they're actually accessing a computer somewhere else that is
Mhm.
running the software, and it's just sending the signal
Pixels.
to their screen.
It's exactly, so it's sending pixels to their screen rather than sending an entire all of the resources, so to say. So, say the actual hard disk, the disk drive space, and the memory, and all of that info that comes with the actual system. You're only referencing the pixels of the actual system that has a remote display. So, say for
Mhm.
instance, everyone knows of remote desktop with Windows. That offers you a remote display of that system because it has, say, a graphical user's interface. So we're
Mhm.
sending the pixels of that graphical user's interface over the internet to your endpoint.
Mhm. Another thing with virtual machines that I think has changed the industry in a fundamental way is being able to spin up virtual machines and do rendering remotely as well.
Mhm.
Is there a good way that somebody can experiment with that in AWS, or an easy way to learn that, so that they understand the power behind it, do you think?
Easy way, no, but there definitely is a way to do it. AWS usually offers its service free for a year for all its users. So you can go out and sign up for an AWS account and figure out how to kind of launch a server and maybe load up Blender um, and
Mm,
go from there. See if you can
Blender is
get a
cool too,
Blender.
yeah.
Exactly. So, as I said, you can go with open source tools that will definitely get you to an aptitude that will definitely stand out, well, let you stand out amongst the rest of the candidacy. So, for instance, load up Blender and figure out how to automate that process. So
Mm,
from there, once you manually click through, say, the AWS console or their website, so to say, to actually get that VM up and running, figure out what the API is used to actually create that resource. Because although we refer to them as VMs, they're actually API resources. And they can be tapped in through APIs programmatically, which will then allow you to scale that solution out to where instead of you loading up one VM with one Blender instance, you can now load up 100 VMs with Blender installed on them, and you have a render farm that is massive uh, and can do tons of functions. So
yeah,
um, it's
it's
more so
super
getting
cool.
out and yeah, just building. I would say.
Yeah, yeah, it's another thing where it's just getting hands-on is huge.
Mhm.
So going back into technologies driving the industry, what do you think is really driving change in your part of the industry? What should new professionals that are just trying to find their first job be looking at that will really influence the next few years?
Yes, I would say automation. That's kind of huge on everyone's list at the moment. No one wants to manually do these processes anymore. It's more so of understanding how a system is configured and being able to automate that configuration of that system. Of course, we're all used to maybe getting onto a shell and typing in some things, but understanding how that can be automated and automating that task is vital to the industry. I would say it's definitely going to be a key driver in allowing us to deliver great content. It's definitely allowing us now at this point within Netflix to bring artists joy for them to enable them to continue to create great content through these crises. So The cloud, of course, also enables us for that, which is also another key component to industry trends, migrating a lot of these workflows to the cloud and making a lot of maybe new workflows cloud native. So it's a combination of those two, I would say is driving the industry.
Awesome. Yeah, it's interesting. The cloud has been a big topic for a long time, and it feels like with COVID-19, people really actually have to do it now.
Exactly.
How do you see that really accelerating now? Just not just at Netflix, but in general with the industry. Do you feel that people are going to start really pushing that?
Yes, I feel people will definitely make a huge push to the cloud after this COVID-19 crisis. It definitely has shed light on a lot of the shortfalls of various industries. So the cloud definitely can be that component that enables that to work to continue or work to continue.
So a few more questions for you. Thinking about those early career people that are trying to get an entry-level role somewhere, when you're going to recommend somebody for an entry-level job, what kinds of skills are you looking for in them? Both technical skills and soft skills.
Perfect. So soft skills, I look for someone who's kind of light, someone who's very open and willing to hear what I have to say and not kind of over talk as some may do. I look for a sparse technical acumen. Just how much have you built? Have you actually built a solution? Or have you been in the realm of supporting solutions? In today's day and age, it's very simple to go out and get into the cloud. It's not there's no barrier holding anyone back from this industry or the greater cloud industry that it and the benefit that it offers. They actually promote learning of these various skills. So I would say learn as much. I look for them to have built something, show me a solution that you have built that maybe has not offered you income, something that was a passion project. I've had a few passion projects of mine that, of course, they haven't come to fruition, but I still have the code, so that's my IP. That's where I want to. I want to look for someone who thinks in a manner of I'm not doing this for money, but I just love to build things.
Yeah, and it feels like it's easier than ever to go out and build stuff because there's just so much access and there's such a community online for getting feedback and leading others.
Exactly.
Are there any big mistakes you see newer professionals making when they first get into the industry?
Yes, I would say I suffered from it as well, especially when I started out coding, but imposter syndrome. That's a huge barrier to especially newcomers to the industry. Uh, it kind of hinders them from collaborating. It hinders them from gaining more knowledge because they may think that, hey, if I ask a question, I may be looked upon as less knowledgeable or less than. So there's no need to feel as though anyone's an imposter, especially in this industry, as it's always a learning curve. There's always you're constantly learning. So if that's the case, you're constantly an imposter. You can't look at yourself at that. That's a huge barrier for collaboration. And collaboration is key in our industry to bring these solutions to artists and content creators and to continue the business and innovate. We have to collaborate. And when people feel as though they are maybe a bit scared to speak up or don't want to come off a certain way, that kind of hinders the business and the greater team. So I would say newcomers can be more open to just saying, hey, I'm here to learn. Just ask the question, and you definitely will get the answer, and you can add that to your toolbox of knowledge.
Yeah, I definitely have and continue to struggle with imposter syndrome too.
Exactly. As I said, it's there, but if that's the case, we're constantly imposters. We'll never not be an imposter if that's the case, because there's always something new to learn, and that's just how it is.
So to flip that around, are there any things that any traits or actions that maybe Gen Z is doing right now that are exceeding the industry veterans?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say just their openness to innovate and willing to take on new challenges and say, hey, it's been done this way so long and we don't think it's working, so let's try this way. So their willingness and openness to say, hey, let's try it a different way. Let's things have been going the same way and it's been a kind of the same party for so long. Let's mix it up and do some things differently. So that's definitely a huge plus on that generation's end. Um,
Yeah.
and it's definitely going to drive innovation. That's the key part of it all.
Yeah, thankfully. Um, so for the last few questions, let's go back to your career specifically. What do you think has been the most challenging part of your career path so far, and how did you overcome it?
So I would say, as we just spoke about, it was imposter syndrome. As we said, me being in the industry and not having many people look like me in the industry through the years. I've been doing this for 10 plus years now. So it's been a constant internal battle of feelings of inadequacy and overcompensation. So I've been able to finally, I wouldn't say fully overcome it, but um, I've definitely been able to deal with it and kind of put it to the back of things and understand that I have an ability and I just understand my ability and I'll let that kind of show and let it speak for itself.
That is excellent. Yeah. So to jump off of that, what aspect of your work right now are you most proud of?
I would say I'm currently bringing artists joy. I've actually gotten cookies from artists, so that's been like a huge thing. Like that brought me a huge joy that I got some cookies mailed to my home. Like this was great. So that's been a huge plus for me, just being able to see that my work is bringing others joy and my hard work and effort has really paid off and seeing that people can continue to deliver on their promises, so to say, and continue to deliver on what they say that they're capable of. Just me being able to allow me, well, be building a solution that allows them to feel that way is great.
That's awesome. Not only did you get cookies, but they were mailed to you.
Exactly. Mailed cookies. That was great.
Awesome. One last question for you, and this is often the hardest one. What is one piece of advice you can give to newcomers that they can apply today?
Yeah. Of course, I could go technical and say go learn Git and go learn Jenkins and CI/CD, but no, I would say stay humble, maintain humility over hubris. I've delivered a lot of solutions and I've known that they've only been learning experiences. They haven't been the height of my career. They haven't been the epitome of my life. It's maintaining a humility and knowing that that humility is going to bring you a constant hunger and give you a constant thirst for knowledge and maintain that hunger. Everything else will fall in place from there as long as you kind of maintain that humility and deliver on your word.
Amazing. That is such good advice for Hollywood in general and
Yeah,
everyone
true,
else.
right. Exactly. Exactly.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time today. This was really a great buffet of all kinds of different pieces of advice from technical to personal. So that was awesome.
Thank you for having me. It's been awesome just being able to show what I've had and where I've come and how far I've come. So I thank you for the
Yeah.
opportunity.
So cool to see you come from Iraq to Netflix and everything in between.
Exactly.
Just a couple of quick announcements before I wrap this up. A reminder that we do have a 50% discount on virtual courses and some free access. And if you're a student, you can join free and renew for $15. You can watch all of these sessions at this tiny URL I made. If you just look for YouTube, SMPTE Hollywood, if you can't remember this tiny URL, you can watch. It goes straight to a playlist of everything. This was the last session in our first sort of pilot series of these, and I think it went really well. And I've enjoyed having all these viewers coming on with these great questions, so I think we're going to go ahead and do another batch. So I'm going to take a week or two off and go do some organizing, and we're going to come back with a fresh list of professionals that are going to come give you career advice. I'm still working on solidifying names, but some of the jobs you might learn about coming up are VFX editor, color scientist, re-recording mixer, color assistant, or production engineer maybe. So watch out for more of these. And you can, one way to learn about future sessions is to follow our Facebook page. You can also go and join SMPTE Hollywood's email list as well. And if you have any feedback on this or any follow-up questions on these sessions, you can always find me personally on Twitter or LinkedIn. Feel free to connect on there. All right, so that's about it. Thank you all so much.